lot of you getting in touch. I asked this morning, what is your big issue when it comes to the general election? And a huge number of people saying it is social care. Elizabeth, I'd really love the focus on the care system crisis to be acknowledged. It's more than the NHS. Katrina says social care is my priority vote winner. Nick says I'm a 57-year-old who's just spent 3 weeks in hospital. I've always been a Conservative, but will never vote for them again until our government sort out social care and the NHS. Alan, I want a party which is honest. At the moment, I don't see one. Rob, social care, especially for adult care for the vulnerable. Well, social care is not the main issue this morning for either of the parties. Kemi Badenoch is going to be talking this morning about changes to gender and biological sex. And John Healey is the Shadow Defence Secretary and is out for Labour this morning, going to talk about defence spending. Well, let's talk to you first about Diane Abbott, John Healey, because Ed has just seen a tweet, haven't you?
I have. I mean, I was going to ask John about Diane Abbott. It's clearly been a big mess over the last week. She's had the whip restored. There's been an argument about whether or not she would stand as a candidate. She's now said she is going to stand as a candidate. Are you happy that she will be a candidate for Labour in the general election?
There has been confusion. I'm happy that the way's clear now for Diane to make that decision. She's had the Labour whip restored, which cleared the barriers to her standing as a Labour candidate. She says she wants to stand. She says she wants to win. She's in the same position as I am, like every other Labour candidate. We're a candidate. We expect to be confirmed by the party together as a rubber stamp exercise tomorrow.
There's been a development, though, overnight. Keir Starmer said yesterday, I've actually got more respect for Diane than she probably realises. It may be that she is respected more by you than she realises. But Diane Abbott then last night tweeted this, more lies from Starmer. So she accused the leader of the Labour Party of being a liar on Twitter last night. She then deleted the tweet. But is that the kind of behaviour you'd expect from a Labour candidate?
Well, you obviously follow Twitter much more closely than I do, Ed. I didn't see it. If she's removed it, then I can't check it.
Well, we
but
just
as
showed
I say,
it on
the way is clear now.
It's there. She said more lies from Starmer.
Yeah.
What would you?
Well,
I mean,
one of the disadvantages
what's your
is not
reaction
being
to
with you in
learning
the
that
studio
news
then.
then?
Look, my reaction is the ball's in Diane's court. If she wants to stand, she says she does. The way is now clear. I'm glad that's been, that confusion is now clear. The way is clear for her to stand. She will be, if she wants to stand, endorsed as a Labour candidate, I expect, tomorrow alongside myself and candidates in 650 seats across the country.
It does feel that there's bad blood.
No, she's a major figure, a role model for many people. 37 years in the House of Commons, the first black woman MP. She is a trailblazer. She wants to continue. She says she wants to stand as a candidate. The way is now clear for her to do that.
John Healey, you are wanting to talk less about Diane Abbott, I'm sure, this morning than you do about defence. Labour is pledging a nuclear deterrent triple lock, and that you are going to commit to defence spending of 2.5%. Now, what on earth is a nuclear deterrent triple lock? And how has your position changed since your leader in the 2019 general election, Jeremy Corbyn, said he would never use nuclear weapons if he ever became Prime Minister, in a shadow cabinet of which you were a member?
Well, the first thing that has changed is that Jeremy Corbyn is long gone.
You haven't.
He's no longer a Labour MP. He's not standing for Labour. I'm standing. I was part of a shadow cabinet that tried to keep the breadth, the political breadth of the Labour Party represented at the top table, just as Keir Starmer did. What we're announcing today
Did you agree with your
is
leader then, back in 2019? He was opposed to the use of nuclear weapons. Well, of course, nobody wants to use nuclear weapons, but the whole point of a nuclear deterrent is you have to be prepared to use them, and asked if he would use them. He said no. Did you agree with him when you were in his shadow cabinet?
Look, I fought for and backed the Labour manifesto in 2019, which committed the Labour Party to supporting the deterrent and supporting NATO. Today, we're announcing going a step further with a guarantee for the UK's nuclear deterrent, which is fundamental, the bedrock, if you like, to our national security and our national defence. And the triple lock is a step that even the Conservatives have not yet taken. It's a guarantee for the long-term future. We have to do it because we face increasing threats and have to stand up to a decade of growing Russian aggression. What it means is that we will build all 4 new nuclear submarines in Barrow. We will maintain the continuous at-sea deterrence, and we'll deliver all the upgrades required to keep these submarines on patrol 24/7,
okay. So
365 days a year, and to keep the country safe.
So even though you served in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, you completely disagreed with him over nuclear weapons, the fact that he would never use one. That you've established that. You completely disagreed with the leader under whom you served.
But Jeremy Corbyn had personal views and a long track record on that. The Labour Party's position has been consistent since the mid-1980s in the mainstream, like me, pro the nuclear deterrent, pro-NATO, and that's been heavily reinforced by Keir Starmer.
But according to the
heavily
Commons
reinforced
voting
by
list,
Keir Starmer since he became leader 4 years ago.
According to the Commons voting list, David Lammy, Shadow Foreign Secretary, voted against replacing Trident with a new nuclear weapons system. So did Angela Rayner, currently Deputy Leader. So did the Shadow International Development Minister, Lisa Nandy. So are they backing this nuclear deterrent triple lock, or are they maintaining their original position against Trident?
Yes, they are. So when Keir Starmer was the first Labour leader for over 30 years, I'm going to explain for you in a moment. Yes, they are backing this. When Keir Starmer went to Barrow as the first Labour leader for over 30 years to see the nuclear submarines being built, he said, look, the nuclear deterrent, and he was right, is the bedrock of our national security. Every Labour front bencher knows this, accepts this, supports this.
This is a bit hard to understand, isn't it? I mean, in your case and Keir Starmer's case, you say that you have been consistent in your support of the nuclear deterrent, even when you were in the shadow cabinet. And Jeremy Corbyn has been consistent in his personal view against the nuclear deterrent. But the person who would be the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has not been consistent. You would accept that he's changed his mind. In 2016, he voted against the renewal of Trident, and then, a bit like Neil Kinnock between 1987 and 1992, he seems to have changed his mind.
Yes, I would say that, first of all, Jeremy Corbyn is now beyond the margins of the Labour Party, and the world has moved on since 2016. David Lammy would say that, and he and I said this together before the last Labour conference last year. The UK's nuclear deterrent is fundamental to our security as a nation.
When you
our
spoke
triple
to
lock
him,
today
why did he vote that way in 2016?
For future generations.
How would he explain to you, when you're chatting, why David Lammy voted against it in 2016? What changed?
But what's changed is the increasing threats we face, the growing Russian aggression, which we have to deter for at least the next decade. What's changed is that the world has become much more dangerous, much less certain, and there's a recognition that the UK's nuclear deterrent is fundamental, the bedrock, if you like, as Keir Starmer says, to our British defence and our contribution to defending NATO allies as well.
OK, John Healey, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure it's an issue which will raise its head at tomorrow's leaders' debates. Is Sir Keir Starmer practising for those today? Do you know what kind of preparations are taking place?
Both leaders will be preparing. It's an important moment in the election campaign, and experience tells us for many people it's one of the first points at which they start to turn their attention to political debate and the big choice facing the country on the 4th of July. And this is a chance for change, probably the best chance for change for a long time. So there's a lot at stake. And what Keir Starmer will say in the debates is that he became leader and he said never again will Labour go into a general election not trusted on national security. OK. John Healey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
7:37, just in your experience, is defence an issue where you think the Prime Minister tomorrow will try and see a way to get Sir Keir Starmer unstuck?
Definitely. And I think it's one of those things where if you ask in opinion polling what's the most important issue for you, it will be cost of living, the National Health Service, could be schools.
Social care,
defence
coming up.
Exactly. Defence tends to be kind of further down people's list of priorities, as in the thing which they want change on, they want action on. But if you're voting in an election and that person is going to become the Prime Minister, you're thinking to yourself, in a moment of crisis, are they somebody with trust to make the big calls? If they jumped onto a table in a burning restaurant and said, run that way, would you run that way? Or would you think, well, do I trust them? And so in that sense, as a sign of leadership, it's hugely important.
Yes.
And that is why I'm sure Rishi Sunak will be going for Keir Starmer on defence, and Keir Starmer will need to be absolutely resolute, including explaining the answer to the question you asked, which is, if he was in the shadow cabinet with Jeremy Corbyn, did he speak up?
Yeah. And if once you said run that way and now you're saying run that way, do people trust you?
Exactly.
These are the issues that they'll be tackling tomorrow night in the debate.